Welcome to the Greenlight podcast. My name is Dr. Davis, the good doctor, and we have
Miss Imani. Hi,
and
guys.
we're going to do the
Culture chats.
All right, so what's going on? Let's talk about education and HBCUs. So, an article was written that nearly half of the teachers, black teachers, are graduates of HBCUs. How do you feel about that?
I think it's amazing that we're making such a great impact, and we're literally half of the ecosystem. Like, we are creating or helping to create the future.
I agree. Being a former educator, we need more black teachers in the classrooms. The students, they want us there. We impact them differently, so we need them. So I definitely miss the classroom, but I am very proud that HBCUs are producing educators.
Well, how important do you think it is that a teacher looks like you?
Absolutely. Representation matters, right? The students, especially in all grades, but middle school, high school, elementary, they want to see an individual that looks like them because we relate. They can relate to us. We understand what they're going through. We have that connection. So those students, they need that. So when I taught, I started when I was 22, and I was able to really, I was young. I was really able to impact the students, and I miss it. But I do keep in contact with many of them today.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right, moving on to the NBA. Ja Morant. He was suspended for 8 games for flashing a gun on his Instagram Live. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it's tough. I think that people underestimate the level of influence that they have in those moments where they just think that they just have the comfortability of just living their lives. Especially on live, it's really hard to understand why he would feel so comfortable to do that without thinking he wouldn't have repercussions.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. Ja, he has a fresh deal with Nike, a $40 million contract with the NBA. He has endorsements from Hulu, Beats by Dre, Disney. He's making money. He's worth a lot of money. A lot of people depend on him. So I think it was very irresponsible of him to do so. He let his team down. He let the fans down. I think more importantly, himself.
Well, do you think that his punishment of being suspended for those 8 games was enough? Because he's already back.
Yeah, he's back. I think it was enough. I don't think he'll do it again. It's too much on the line for him. And I know he's a young man. Young man with all this money. His whole world changed since he graduated and made the league. But I think he needs better people around him to make sure he does the right thing, stays in line. So I'm a huge fan of Ja, and I hopefully he does better moving forward. Okay,
well, speaking of having good people around you, how do you feel about Jonathan Majors? You know him, he's from Ant-Man and Creed 3.
Right.
So good. And he was arrested for a couple different charges. So not anything too crazy as far as like what we've been seeing lately, but for assault, harassment, and for almost strangling someone. How does that make you feel?
I hate reading articles like that, right? I hate it because he's up and coming. He's an amazing actor. There was a show on HBO that I really liked that he was in.
What was it?
Can't remember the name right now, but he did an amazing job. But I just don't like seeing it, right? Because he has a promising future. He's an amazing actor. So same thing with Ja Morant. It was a bad situation. We really don't know what happened because the female did recant her story.
She did.
Right. So we're not there. We don't know what happened. But I hope moving forward he makes better decisions and he stays out of trouble.
Okay. Well, let's place you in that position briefly. How would you actually handle a situation like that?
Could you explain to me what happened?
So you
paint the picture.
Paint the picture. So hopefully you're not insulting anyone, right? But more so now that you find that you're in a position of a lot of influence and relevance, how important is it for you to keep good people around you that you can trust? Like, how would you move differently? Friendships, relationships, whether it's personal or platonical, like what?
Yeah, so I'll keep my circle small, right? Because I don't know who to trust anymore. I signed $1 million contracts. I have endorsements. I'm on TV or in movies, so I want to keep my circle tight. My brothers, my family, and the friends that I knew when I was broke.
Before?
Yep, period. That's it.
It's safer?
A lot safer.
Well, a lot of times, family is the ones that tend to reach out. Remember, like Kobe's family?
Right, but that's different. They didn't put him in a bad situation where his career was in jeopardy. They wanted money from him, right? They were trying to sell his trophies and his jerseys. That's different. They were wrong for that. But what I'm saying is I want people around me that's going to look out for my best interest, period. Because this is my future. And just like Ja Morant, this guy, his career will impact a lot of people that are working with him, his stylists, you know, the people around him. He's employing a lot of people.
Yeah,
Not
you're
to
right.
mention the franchise, so Ant-Man or Creed. What if there's another Creed? You know, I didn't see the movie, but we want to make sure that his name and he's clean in the streets.
Yeah, his identity.
Identity, right?
Because
So-
he's in Marvel and he's going to be a part of the other different
Exactly.
seasons, but movies. But
yeah.
what's going to happen if this goes beyond? Because he already lost his deal with Converse, and
He did.
the military, you know, removed his marketing campaign. So those were only two small things. I wonder what the repercussions are going to be, even though she took her statement back. Like, has the damage already been done?
I don't think so because, well, only time will tell. But if you look at other actors who had bad situations, a lot of them did recover. Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man, he had some drug issues prior,
Yeah.
but he came back, he bounced back, and to be honest, his movies were one of my favorites for the Marvel series. Love Iron Man.
Marvel, getting in trouble.
All right, what do we have next?
So you have the two female high school students in New Orleans that made a map discovery last week. Tell us about it.
That was amazing. So what they did was they proved that a theory without trigonometry, right? So I was never good at math, right?
Me either.
Yeah, so we have something in common. I was never good at math, but they were able to do something that no one else prior was able to do.
Yeah.
So I think
2,000 years.
2,000 years of people doing math. Nobody could do what they did,
Yeah.
so it's impressive. So impressive that they may win up to $1 million for their discovery.
And they're only in high school.
Only in high
So
school.
if this is what they're doing now, just imagine what they're capable of in the future.
Yep, hopefully they go to an HBCU.
Like FAM?
There you go.
Yeah, okay. That sounds about right. I could be their coach.
Boom.
Yeah.
I love it.
I like the way that sounds. So
Mhm.
just a plug. Yeah, okay. So Adidas actually filed a complaint against Black Lives Matter in their trademark for the three-stripe logo.
Mhm.
Crazy.
Crazy.
On Monday.
Because when you look at the Black Lives Matter logo,
Yeah.
I don't think it resembles Adidas at all.
Well, what their initial complaint was that it could send the wrong message because just based on like what Black Lives Matter stands for compared to Adidas, it's a shoe brand and it's a movement, and yeah, they can say that they're both movements, but Adidas just felt as though it was just too close.
Mhm.
So how do you feel about them just making that complaint?
I didn't see it. I don't think it's justified. Because when we looked at the logos earlier this morning,
Yeah.
if you didn't tell me about the lawsuit, I would have no idea that this logo resembles Adidas logo. I had no idea. So I think it was a stretch.
Yeah,
but
I think it was too.
The lawsuit is no longer in effect. Is that correct?
It's not. So they filed on Monday, but they actually pulled it today. Like literally, this just happened. But a lot of people are saying it's because they have a lot of stories or partnerships that are being decreased. So like their deal with Beyonce is ending this year. The thing with Kanye West,
yeah.
how he very blatantly got himself out of that contract that was going to last for a good amount of time. So they're losing a lot of money this year. So I wonder, I hope not, but I wonder if that's the reason why they did that for
Well,
like clout.
Right. I don't think we'll ever know because they'll never come out and say it. But do you would you buy Adidas now? Like,
Yes.
oh, you still support Adidas? Okay.
I was
Okay.
still buy
Okay.
my-
I still wear
my
my Yeezys,
Adidas.
but I don't know if I'll buy any more.
Why?
Mm.
Just because they fouled?
No. Well, I'm still a little upset with the whole Kanye Adidas situation. I didn't like that at
So
all.
because they separated, you
I,
gonna stop buying
I didn't
their
like
shoes?
it, and I'm good with Adidas moving forward. But the ones I do have, I'll continue to wear.
Oh, okay. So you're not buying anything
I'm not
new.
buying anything else. No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of our culture chats, and we will be back after this short commercial.
Welcome to the Greenlight podcast. Today we have a special guest, Miss Jaclyn Harold, MMJ at WCTV. Welcome to the TV show.
Thank you.
All right. So before we get started, as always, we want to get to know you a little bit better. So we're going to play a little game. We call it the one-word game. So we're going to give you a prompt and tell us how you feel about it in one word or so. Okay? So, FAMU.
I love it.
Okay.
Black women.
Love them. I'm one.
Drake.
Yeah,
Word.
that's the word.
Oh.
Expression. He's all right.
Okay.
All right, okay.
Fried chicken Wednesday.
I miss it.
Okay.
One. Give us one. Missed.
I missed. Yeah, missed.
Okay.
FAMU homecoming.
Fashion.
Okay. Why? Well, everyone dresses up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that's where everybody
Okay.
brings out their best outfits.
Let's say SZA.
Underrated.
Ooh.
I like that one.
I do like that one.
Mhm.
Why?
I think she has a lot of meaning to her music, and people don't necessarily get it just because they don't listen to it deeply. But I like that she's an artist that isn't afraid to be emotional, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love SZA.
What about Jaclyn as an MMJ?
Hardworking.
Jaclyn as an anchor?
Even more hardworking. I'd say as an anchor, growing.
Okay. Okay. So, would you rather be a reporter or an anchor? Or MMJ, I'm sorry, MMJ or an anchor?
I like both,
Mhm.
just because I do like that when I'm anchoring, there's room for a little more personality, at least with the morning show. We can connect with our audience, and we have a little more time to kind of ad-lib and talk and create conversation in between stories. But I don't want to lose the ability to still be out in the community,
Right.
meeting people, sharing their stories, and like what's important to them as well.
Okay. So tell us about how you got started.
Yeah, so I graduated in spring 2018. I took my first job in a fairly small market 153 in Rochester, Minnesota. And it's weird because people always ask, well, how did you end up there? Out of all of the places that I was applying to, Rochester was the one job I didn't have to. I put my reel up on YouTube, and the news director reached out to me.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know, that just kind of, it was a good feeling to feel wanted and not necessarily like I had to sell myself
Okay.
to other people.
So the ease of it made you feel more comfortable
Yes.
uprooting and going there.
I mean, still nervous for sure, but I like the experience of just going somewhere completely new and kind of starting my career. It all just seemed to fit, like a new experience, a new place.
So what did it feel like? So you said starting your new career and you're
Mhm.
finally in the field. What was like that first moment? How did it make you feel?
Definitely nervous, because when you're in school, it's obviously a level of acceptance with making mistakes and things
Right.
like that. But now you're being paid to do this job, and you're
Exactly.
expected to, tell these stories and to essentially be able to live up to that resume and that reel that you've put out there. And so it was nerve-wracking, but it was a great experience and a great opportunity for me to learn from other people that have been in the industry for a while already.
Jaclyn, you were in Minnesota during the death of George Floyd. Can you
Mhm.
describe that experience covering it, but also living in the community?
So Rochester was about an hour and a half away from Minneapolis, or the Twin Cities, where it happened. But it definitely didn't feel that far. Like, we had protests locally as well. And as the only Black person at my station at the time, it did feel a little, I'd say, isolated, for a lack of a better word. Because even though obviously I didn't know George Floyd, and I don't think we ever really have actual relative ties to
Right.
some of the people and the stories that we see, at the same time, he was like my uncle, he was like my dad. And so I felt like nobody else could really understand that, because they haven't technically been in those situations. And so it was hard, even harder kind of attending those protests and listening to people cry out and, sharing similar experiences of having lost people. It was difficult, for sure, but even harder to kind of try to get other people that haven't been in those scenarios to understand.
Of course. So you mentioned being the only Black person working at the news station. Describe that experience. Because you came from HBCU, obviously people of color everywhere, and then you transitioned. Like, can you share your experience?
Well, I will say it's not like the first time that I've been in a situation like that. I'm from South Florida, but I've attended schools that were predominantly white, elementary, some middle schools, or a mixture of people. It was different. I think that we all understand, like, the black tax and working. Is that okay to say?
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I think everybody seeing this will probably understand too, but just having to, already being a hard worker, but having to work 10 times harder than other people around you just because you're black. I felt that a lot of times. Like, I had been there longer, and I watched people come in after me with less experience than me get bigger opportunities than me, or I'd have to pretty much like explain why I deserved to tell certain stories. Like with the George Floyd situation, I actually had a story set up with a couple of local leaders that were willing to talk just about, you know, what that feeling of losing another unarmed African-American man means. And I was told that I might be too close to that story. So my boss wanted me to essentially pass along my contacts and the interviews that I set up to another reporter. And I mean, like, I can't even describe the frustration, but like situations like that they don't understand why it's even more important for me to tell those stories. And I feel like having a lack of diversity tends to result in situations like that.
Okay. So you seem to work in a very, not seem, but you work in a very public atmosphere that requires you to have to exchange yourself a lot of the times, right? Your personality, your identity. What is that like as a black woman to have to basically sometimes be professional, like they say? And how do you still continue to remain close to who Jackie is and making sure that you still feel a sense of self at the end of the day?
I think I pride myself most in always trying to be myself. I mean, I always say, whether it's for a good reason or a bad reason, I'm a person first and then professional second. And that's, I mean, that could go when it comes to giving attitude, that can go when it comes to just being vulnerable, which I think people can appreciate. Like, I'm human, and I'm always going to choose being human first over necessarily being professional. And I think sometimes people need to see that because they, for whatever reason, think we're like robots anyway. We're like seen on TV, and for the most part, people get that professional side, or they've been used to seeing that professional side when it comes to our industry. But I'm gonna be myself. If I mess up, people are gonna know. If I think something is funny, even if it's corny, people are gonna know. And I'm just myself all the time. I try to be.
I love that.
You know.
Jaclyn, do you feel like you have to do certain stories do justice? Like after you go into the field, you talk to the people, the community, and when it's your time to report, do you feel like you have to make sure you do a good job so you get that word out? Is there any pressure on you?
All the time. And I think most of that pressure comes from being fair a lot of times, is getting both sides. No matter what it is, no matter what side you land on, is just making sure that you're representing everybody. And I'll say one thing about at least the Tallahassee community, for sure, they will hold you accountable. So if you tell one side and not the other, you're going to hear from that side that wasn't represented.
Like, do they write letters or
email?
Yeah.
I mean, you could... You can write into the station on like our Facebook, like actual emails. You can call the station. So like, yeah, you'll hear about it for sure. They'll find you on Facebook, all of that. So,
follow-up question: tattoos. Most of us here are tatted. I think everyone's tatted here, actually, right? So, how did that impact? How did that impact? How does that impact you? Because sometimes you may wear an outfit where the flower shows, or how did your employers view you for having those tattoos?
Well, I mean, in my first job, it was never really a conversation. Like, I just kind of wore something one day to see if like I got away with it. And when I did, I just continued to occasionally. But obviously, I still know that like certain stories, I'll try to be a little more reserved. But my job here, it was a conversation that I had. It's a bit of a larger market compared to where I started. So, you know, the audience is different. So just appealing to them. But I also think that like most industries, they're becoming a lot more accepting to things like that, where you didn't really see doctors before with like dreads or tattoos and things like that. It's more common because it's a part of who people are. It doesn't make me any less professional. So I think, I mean, just it depends on where you are. Some people I think are going to be okay with it, some aren't. And as an on-air talent, you kind of have to be understanding of your employers and just know what their limits are, I suppose.
Okay. And in closing, just one more question before we let you go. So with all this impact of telling people's stories and like really putting yourself out there, what do you want to be remembered for after serving this position? What's important to you that people remember about you?
I think I want people to remember my genuine care for the communities that I serve, because again, I think a lot of people assume that we're just about getting stories, which is why there's such a rift when it comes to the media industry in general. But there are lots of people out there that are telling stories because they care about people and they care about making an impact in communities, and I'm one of them. And so I hope that any story that I tell, whether it's holding somebody accountable or, you know, someone picked a cat out of a tree or like whatever it is, I hope that every story I tell, every person that's involved knows that I was doing it from a genuine place.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming to see us today and
Thank
sharing
you,
your
Jaclyn.
experience. We really appreciate it.
Having me.
And we'll be back with our announcements.
Welcome back to the Greenlight podcast. Let's jump into the academic announcements.
All right, guys, we have about 4 weeks left, so just make sure during this time that you're doing whatever it takes to get your work done. So any loose ends that you don't have tied up, talking to your professors, reaching out to them to see what you can do during this time, preparing for your exams. Just remember that I know the season's closing out. It can be very stressful, but this is not a time to dilute your energy and your attention. You just have to finish out strong.
Great advice. So also internships. If you don't have an internship and if you want an internship, please go to the Career Center. They have networks and connections with many employers from across the country. Go to the Career Center, try to get an internship. You still have time, but you are running out of time.
Okay. Advisement. So advisement, everyone has their own specific dates. So just be aware when you look on iRattler to see what you have available, and make sure you get in for summer. That's early opening next week, as well as fall. So those who don't have any classes yet, just make sure that you make an appointment so that you don't fall behind and you look up and all the classes are filled.
Also, as it pertains to summer classes, if you don't have the 2.0 GPA or if you think you won't have a 2.0 GPA, consider summer classes. In order to be eligible for financial aid, you need a 2.0 and you have to pass 67% of your classes. So if you're not at that 2.0 mark, consider summer classes. But again, talk to your academic advisor.
Yeah.
And finally, if you are struggling in any of your classes, come to tutoring. We have labs located throughout campus. And if you're just struggling and you need some support, come talk to an academic coach like Miss Imani.
Okay, so just to give you guys a piece of advice as we close out, I know that asking for help can seem like a burden. It can feel as though you're a little bit weak, but tutoring and any resources that we have on campus are initially in place to support you. So if you find yourself in a moment or a place and position as though you just don't feel as though you can handle it on your own, reach out to a coach, reach out to your professors, but also attend the resources that we do have on campus, okay? Remember that our positioning here is to support you through every single experience that you have here on campus. Just finish strong and let's prepare for the summer.
Until next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.